Hello, and welcome to Procedural Textures in Octane Render for Cinema 4D. My name is Kevin, and I'm going to be showing you today how to use the DirtMap to create rust, worn paint, and mildew. I'm in Cinema 4D, and I've set up my Octane scene. I have a camera with an Octane camera tag, an Octane sky, which has an HDRI plugged into it, and then I have two cubes, both with Octane object tags. And what I want to demonstrate first is the difference between a regular dirt map and then one that is used to map noise to an object. That is a technique first that I want to acknowledge a user on the Octane forums for. It's ACC24EX. In this post, some more procedural metals. They demonstrated this technique that has this battered edge look. I thought it looked really nice. Has some nice dents in here as well. And I was able to download this metal Octane file and take a look at how they did it. And I'm going to show you some of the materials that I came up with using that method. So first, let me show you the difference in the two techniques. I'm going to create two diffuse materials. On this first one, I'm going to drop on cube 1 and the second one on cube 2. In cube 1, I'm going to go into the diffuse channel, and in the texture node, I'm going to create a dirt shader. If I go into the dirt shader and choose invert normal, I'm going to crank up the strength, reduce the radius, and zoom in here to show kind of what's happening. Octane is going from pure black at the edge and fading it towards the center of this face, and that's fine. It works well for regular polygons, but one of the things that's difficult about using this is that it's so regular. It looks very unrealistic. Dirt would and rust and different materials would have a lot more noise or chaos to their pattern. And so this technique that I'm going to show you is a way to employ that. If I go into this texture tag and in the diffuse channel, I'm going to create turbulence. Okay, and if I go into the turbulence node, in the power, I can choose texture, and then I'm going to create a dirt node in there. Now if I go into the dirt node and do the same thing we did before, invert the normal, turn up the strength, turn down the radius. If I come back into the turbulence texture and now play with the octaves and the omega, I should be able to get a noise pattern into my dirt map, which is really handy in creating procedural materials because it allows us to create more natural looking shading at the edges. Okay, so I'll get into some of the different ways that we can manipulate this noise to create realistic textures, and we'll start by creating rust. Let's start by creating a cube, and let's stretch it out. I'm going to give this a C40 Octane tag for object tag, and let's create a rust material. I'm going to create an Octane diffuse material, drag that onto my cube, and I want to create two different noises and blend those together. One's going to be a smaller noise, and then the other one's going to be scaled up. So let's go into the diffuse channel, and in my texture slot here, I'm going to choose C40 Octane mix texture. And I'm going to mix those two noises. So let's create mixed textures in both of them. So I'm going to go into the first of those. And for the RGB spectrum, I'm going to set this to a bright orange. I have some of them saved in my quick panel storage here. And I'm going to hit OK. I go into the mix texture again and choose a darker orange. Okay, so those are my two colors, and then I'm going to mix those with a texture, this amount, and choose turbulence. So first I'm going to go back into my mix texture and drag this over to the side so we can see exactly what's happening as we tweak these. Also, I should set this texture tags projection to cubic, so it's distributed evenly across the cube. Okay, so if I go into mix texture, into the first of those mix texture nodes there, it's going to be, let's set the octaves to 16. And then the omega, let's turn it up to like 0.8 there. Okay. And now let's edit the other texture here. I'm going to copy texture 1 and paste it into texture 2. And in this one, I want to scale it up first. So I'm going to go to my turbulence and choose 1. And then let's go to, so again, turbulence octaves 1. And then if I go into the spectrum colors, I'm going to choose some, like a darker brown here. And then maybe another dark brown. Okay, something like that. If I go back into the mixed texture here, if I blend those two together, I'll get a nice rust. Let me zoom in so you can see kind of what's happening there. Okay. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Maybe 5 octaves on the bigger one there. Okay. Now I want to create a metal material. I'm going to first, let me name this. Oops. Let me name this rust. Now let me create a glossy material. I'm going to name it metal and set the index first to 1. And diffuse is black. Specular, I'm going to make about 55% in the gray. Roughness, I'll drop it down a bit to about 0.04. And yeah, I think that'll be good for metal. Okay, now let's go to our materials and create a mix material. And in material 1, I'm going to load the metal. And in material 2, I'm going to load rust. Now let me drag the mix material onto the cube. And that should be what we get. All right, and then now I want to use the technique that I described at the beginning of this video with the noise in the dirt shader. If we go to Amount and choose from C40 Octane, first I'm going to create a color correction node, which we're going to use later to really dial in our dirt shader. I want to create color correction. And then let's not worry about these parameters for now. And then I want to create a multiply node. And what the multiply node is going to do, let me do that as I'm talking, is it's going to blend together 2 grayscale images of noise into a map that really creates some interesting organic patterns. Let's go into multiply. And in my first texture, I'm going to do what we did at the beginning of the video, which was go to C40 Octane and choose turbulence. Okay, and now in the turbulence, I'm going to open that up and go into my power and choose texture. And now I want to create a dirt node. Let's go into the dirt node and then invert the normal, crank up the strength, and then reduce the radius. Okay, that looks pretty good. So you can see it's darker on the edges, this map. And now I'm going to go up one layer and then turn the octaves up, I think, let's say 10, and then raise the omega to 1. Okay, so you can see if I zoom in, I have my noise being distributed through this DirtMap, or the other way around, the DirtMap distributed through the turbulence. Okay, and let me go up one layer, and now I'm going to create a marble node. So if I choose marble, this is going to give us some random rust splotches through the cube. If I go into marble, and I have some notes here on parameters to get us started. If I turn the power down to 0.77, I think I'm going to leave the offset where it is. Raise the omega. Variance is fine. Octaves to 3. And then for UV transform, this is really dense. We want to scale this up quite a bit. I'm going to scale this about there. And then I'm going to go up again. Here's where we're going to use the color correction node to really dial in these effects with the black level and gamma. I'm going to, let's see, turn up my black level and then also my gamma. So we're creating these patches. There we go. And you know what, I think, so there's a lot in that. If I go into the multiply node and go into turbulence, it looks like a lot of edge noise. So I'm going to go into my dirt here and just reduce that, and maybe also the strength. Okay, I'm liking that better. And then you could also go back into the, I'm going up to marble. And if I was to go into this transform, I could rotate, or sorry, not rotate, translate this in the Y to like kind of put it off center to where I get a pattern of noise that I like. So if yeah, there we go. Have it moved off of the cube and it looks about like the distribution I want. Okay, that is Rust. In the next part, we're going to look at how to create worn paint. Let's start by duplicating the cube that we created in the last lesson for Rust. And I'm going to use this metal shader again. But first, I want to create a diffuse material. This is going to be our paint. If I click on that, I'm just going to go into the diffuse channel and choose this bright red. Let me unlock that. Okay, yeah, that's good. And then let's create a mix material. And in the two material slots, I'm going to drop this. Let me also name these just so it's clear. Red paint. And then in this oct mix, I'm going to call this worn paint. Okay. I'm going to drag red paint into the first material. and then metal into the second material. And then I'm going to go to my rust mix material here, and I'm going to copy this color correction node, which has all of our multiply and then that mask that we created for rust in it. If I go to the worn paint shader and then paste that in the amount channel, and let me make sure that our worn paint is dropped onto this cube, you can see it's the same shader, but it's got a different effect. It really appears to be worn paint at these edges. However, that the marble shader isn't really working for me, so I'm going to go into this color correction, multiply, and then I'm going to copy the original turbulence and paste it over the marble node. And what I want to do with this one is create little nicks and scratches in the paint to reveal the metal beneath it, much like the procedural metals that I showed that I'd seen in the Octane forums before. If I go into the turbulence here, I'm going to clear this dirt material, and then let's go into the UV transform, and I'm going to set the scale to something like 8. And let's see, if I drop this omega, you can see it creates some nice scratch effects. I want them to be pretty subtle. So yeah, something like that. You can see, zoomed right into the cube. And if you really want to, actually I'm going to tone back that dirt shader as well. Make it much more discrete. So if we duplicate this paint cube here, and let's create a new material, sorry, C4D Octane material, and let's name this Mildew. And in the diffuse channel, I'm going to set this to black. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the live DB and download a material. These will not be procedural, or some of them are, but the one I want to download is a bitmap texture. It's called Red Brick, and it's in Otoy Absolute Textures Brick. So I'll download that. And now let me create a mix material. Okay, in the mix material, I'm going to drag the red brick that I downloaded from LiveDB, the Mildew, which is a diffuse with black in the diffuse channel. And then for the amount, I want to do something a little different with this one. I'm going to go to, well, first let me apply this also. I'm going to name it and then apply it. Mildew mix. Okay. Drag this onto my cube here. And let me zoom into it so we can see what's going on. And I'm going to apply a gradient. And this is going to help us control how long these drips are on our cube here. And let me see here. So first thing I want to do is, by default, it'll probably come in like this, where it's a blue to red gradient. We want it to be black to white. And I'm going to drag this in as well. We'll see what this does a little later. And now let's create a turbulence the same way we've done with the other two textures. Let's create turbulence, and then inside of the power, let's do our dirt shader here. Let's go into it and choose invert normal. And then I'm raising the strength, lowering the radius, and let me go up again here. I'm going to turn up my octaves, and I think that'll probably be good actually. Yeah. Okay, and then let me go up one level, and you can see what happens if I move this white slider. It's effectively masking the turbulence. And what I want to do is I want to create drips from these sections here. So I'm going to go into the turbulence and choose UV W transform. Double click the transform node. And then I'm going to scale this up. I think that is probably wide as I need it. Let's just, yeah, like 15 is fine. And then scale it in like this. Okay. Now let me go up a level, and let me go up one more, and drag in this slider. And you can see what's happening here. I think I might go into the omega and kind of reduce some of the extra things it's made there. Let me see what happens if I drag these down. Okay, so you could see maybe under a window ledge or something like that, that this could be an effective look. Okay, and I think I might just tweak it a little bit more. Yeah, so there you go. And again, if you want to reduce how much is showing in the middle of the face here, it would just be a balance of these octaves and omega to take them out. But I think that it's looking pretty nice about there. Okay, great. And let me just show you one final thing. Again, the beauty of these is that they are resolution independent. So as we scale our, oh, and I have a bump texture showing there, but as we scale these, you can see that these materials don't lose the edges of the model, and they keep the resolution, and yeah, that's why we use them. Thanks a lot for watching. Please check out more of my videos on vimeo.com/blastframe.